Hilchas Keilim Perek Shleisha V'Esrim. Hamapotz is a mat. Hu hamachzeles she'ergenese min hachavolim u'min hasuf u'min hagemu kietzvim. It's a mat that's made from chevel is rope, or suf is reeds that grow like reeds that grow on the yamsuf, on the suf, al suf hayam, and also min hagemu, which is also something that grows ukietzvim. Now, even though they grow from the ground, but from desving it doesn't have a din of a klietz, and the reason for it is because it's not a makabel. A mapitz doesn't go into the klietz that the Torah speaks about, because over there the klietz is dumya the sak, and it has to be a makabel. But on the other end, there's a limud that teaches us that anything that's roy lemishkov, we learn out kol mishkov, that a klietz, which is not roy lekabel, so it's not into eitz, but on the other end, it's makabel alza mishkov. Something that's roy lemishkov is makabel alza mishkov. Now the Shitas Rambam is that something that's mekabel al tzamishkov, and it's not really roy lekabel, is also mekabel sh'ar tumas, but only midrabanan. Rashi holds that something that's roy lemishkov is mekabel other tumas minatera. Mashenk and the Rambam holds that something that's roy lemishkov, like a mapatz, which is roy lemishkov minatera, and it's mekabel tumas mishkov medicine minatera, but it's mekabel sh'ar tumas only midrabanan. This is the halacha. Again, hamapatz, that's hu hamachzeles, it's a mat. She'er genese, you weave it, min hachavolim, u'min hasuf, min hagema, u'kietzbem, things that come out of the ground. Ve'ein hamapitz bechlal ha'kelim hamurim b'teira, it's not bechlal klietz, because it's not a mekabel, aber v'afel became, mistamihu b'medres din teira. Even though the Torah doesn't speak about a mapitz, but there's a ribuy, it's mistami b'medres din teira, shari riba ha'kosav kol ha'mishkov. So we learn out that anything that's mishkav is there, roy lemishkav osile. It's roy lemishkav and it's osile lemishkav. So therefore, it's mekabel tumas medus min atera. And v'chein mistami b'mesu b'shar tumas midivreim. It's mekabel tumas mes and other tumas midrabanan. Kechol pshuti kliyetz k'misha b'yarna, that we learned that a pshuti kliyetz, which is not mekabel tuma alza mekabel, but on the other end, if it's roy lemishkav, so it is mekabel tuma alza mishkav. V'zeklal godel shekol mistabim b'medus is also mistami b'shartumas. But again, as we mentioned, that the Rambam holds, the Rambam says clearly that this din, that mistami b'medus is mistami b'shartumas, is only a din midrabon. Halacha beis. Kvar bi'arnu, shahabeged, a beged means a piece of cloth, is mistami b'sholish al sholish k'misha bi'arnu. It can become tummy if it's only sholish al sholish, b'shartumas, or b'shleishet tvachim, al shleishet tvachim l'medus. In order for a beged to be makabel tumas medres, it has to be shleisha tvachim al shleisha tvachim. Masha'enkin l'shar tumas, if it's sholish al sholish, it's also makabel sh'ar tumas. Now that's been a piece of cloth. A piece of cloth means that it's made out of wool, something soft. That's called a beged, means something soft. Now we're going to learn about other materials that's not so soft, and over there's different shiurim in order for them to be makabel tumas medres. Hasak means something that's made out of for a goat's hair, which is hard. That's sak shiuri arbot tvachim al arbot tvachim. In order for it to be makabel tumas medres, it has to be arbot tvachim al arbot tvachim. Ha'er, leather, chamisha al chamisha. Hamapitz, which is what we're learning about, a mat that's made out of these reeds. So it's shisha al shisha, and that din is bein lemedres, bein l'shar tumas. In other words, lemedres is makabel tuma, and also l'shar tumas, because since it's mitami tumas medres, so memela, anything that's mitami tumas medres is mitami shar tumas. So it's makabel tumas medres by a beged it's shleish al shleisha, by a sak it's dalet al dalet, and by an air it's chamisha al chamisha, mapis is shish al shisha tvachim we're talking about, and that's silent medres and silent shar tumas. However, pachis min ashurim ha'elu is teherim miklum. Now, by medvarim amurim that you need these shiurim, bikera echad mehem shenikra b'lei kavanah. If you have a piece of beged, or you have a piece of sak, or you have a piece of air, you have a piece of mapitz, and it was nikra b'lei kavanah, so now you say that this is the shear in order for it to be makabel tumas medres. Aval hakoitzitz b'kavanah v'kitzitz afilu al tefach l'meishov oy shleishet v'achim l'mishkov is areza mistami b'medres. If something was cut specifically with the intent that it should be l'meishav, your koitzes b'kavana, afilu tefach al tefach, and it was l'meishav or shleish al shleish or l'mishkov, so then it becomes mistami b'medres. Ben shoya tefach al tefach shekitzes ya shleish beged, a sak, a eir, a mapitz. Even though we're saying a mapitz normally has to have sheish al shesh, shish al shisha, but that's only if it's tam a piece of a mapitz. Masha'inkin, if you cut the mappet specifically to size in order for it to be a moishav, so it can be even a tefach al tefach. V'chein, hamikatzeya me'achad me'am la'achiza k'dei sheyechiz b'miyada. You took one of these things, these four things, the beged, the sack, the air, and the mappets, and you used it in order that you should be able to hold something with your hand. With your hand, you should be able to hold something else. The people that are cutting off figs, that's be same. So you're holding it with your hand. You're holding these figs. Is hareze tami bekolshul. So even a small thing also becomes tami. Abavahu, the small thing is only shaliyah pachas mishalish al shalish. The smallest it could be is pachas mishalish al shalish. Shekol pachas mishalish al tzbois is tor pachas mishalish al tzbois is tor miklum. So we're saying that these things, if you cut it with the intent, so again, if you cut it with the intent of sitting on it, it has to be lefpachis a tefach al tefach. If you cut it with the intent of using it, so it has to be at least a shalish al shalish. And if it's a shalish al shalish, so then it becomes tummy. So even though we learned before that if the mashal you make a beged, and even that beged is less than shalish al shalish, it's also mekabel tumah, because over there you made the beged. Masha'inkin over here you just cut the beged, vice versa. So over here you need that it should be shalish al shalish. Is nachamol. So if you have stamazeh, a piece of a beged, or you have a piece of air, or you have a piece of beged or sack or air or mappets. So over here there's different shiurim in order for it to be makabel tumah smedres. And benegea beged, in order to be makabel regular tumah, it could be shalish al shalish. That's without having any special intent. Masha'in kain, if you intended, you cut it in order to sit on it, so even if it's a tefach al tefach, it could also be makabel tumas moishav, makabel tumas meishav. And if you take something, one of these materials, and use it in order to have a function, he gives an example, to cut figs with it, so then it also, even if it's less than a tefach al tefach, but on the other end, it has to be 3 etzbois by 3 etzbois. I mean, between 3 etzbois and a tefach is not really that much. The difference is only an etzba by an etzba, because lepeil, because a tefach is 4 etzbois by 4 etzbois, and here it's 3 etzbois by 3 etzbois. Halacha dalet. Hamechaber shnei tvachim min habeged umin hasak tefach. You have 2 tvachim from a beged, and you have another tefach from a sack. So be'emes a beged has to have 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim. You don't have 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim of a beged. You have only 2 tvachim of the beged. But lepeil, the sack adds an extra tefach. Or al derech zeh shleishim in a sack. For a sack you need 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. You don't have 4 tvachim from a sack. You have shleishim in a sack. Which really for air you would need 5 by 5. Or arba min ha'er, you have 4 by from a air you need 5 by 5. And ve'echad min ha'mappets, the mappets is mashlim the 5. So all of these things are a term in Amedus. They're term in Amedus, and the reason is, La Ram's tight choice, very simple, because lepel, a beged is more of a reason to become tummy. So a beged has to have 3 by 3. A sack has to have 4 by 4. So the extra of the sack can't be mashlim to the share of the beged, because the beged needs a share of shleisha ba shleisha of beged. So the sack can't be mashlim that share of beged. That's talking about when you're being mashlim a share which needs less, which even less is makabel tumah, to a share that needs more, because that's less of a reason to be matame. A sack is less of a reason to be matame than a beged. A beged can become tummy even by shleisha al shleisha, and basak needs arba al arba. But it would be fakert. Aval mechiber chamisha tvachim min ha'mappets ve'echad min ha'er. A mappets needs shisha al shisha. Now an air needs only chamisha al chamisha. So an air is more of a reason to become tummy. Even less of an air becomes tummy. Now a mappets needs more. So if you have the 5 by 5 of a mappets and you are mashlim that mappets with the air, so the air is the chluchura what it's a mappets plus. So then it is mekabel tumah. That's what we're saying. Aval mechiber chamisha tvachim min ha'mappets ve'echad min ha'er, or arba min ha'er ve'echad min ha'sak, which again sak is even less mekabel tumah, or shleishim min ha'sak ve'echad min ha'beged. So the beged is being mashlim the shir of sak. Is that is a tummy med? Is that klal? Kol sheishlim shiuri b'chomer mimenu. Chomer mimenu means something that's mekabel tumah even in a smaller shir is called chomer mimenu. So something that you were mashlim the shir b'chomer mimenu is tummy, because you were mashlim. In other words, you were mashlim the sak with beged. A beged is chomer mimenu, because a beged becomes tummy even by shleisha. But fakert min hakal, if you are mashlim the shear with something kal, for example, you want to be mashlim the shear of the beged which needs 3 on 3, with a sack which needs 4 on 4, so the sack is kal mimenu because it's not going to become tummy till 4 on 4, so the sack can't be used to be mashlim the shear of the beged. Pasha. Menakal tor. Halacha hey, bloye nofu ukvara, she'iskinon liyeshiva teirim. Nofu ukvara is like a sieve or a sifter that's made out of material, which is the same material that you make this mat that we learned before about a mapitz. And lepel was originally designated as being a sifter or a sieve, and now it's bloy enough, it's already worn out, it can no longer be used for its original point. And in your mind, you want to use it to sit on. So we say, but since lepel, it wasn't really designated to sit on, so even though you decided to sit on it, that's not really considered muyuchad liyeshiva, and therefore they're tehirim. And the eina mekablim tuma achi yikatzitzim. You have to go ahead and cut it, like in other words, set it up, do a maisa, in order to make it miyuchad liyeshiva, and only then, v'acharkach yio kemapetz, then it'll have a din of a mapetz, which a mapetz we learned before, that if it's shisha al shisha, then it's mekabel tumas medres. Now the maisas we learned before, that when you're mekatzitzim, so then it's mekabel tumas medres, even less than 6 al 6. Lashon Haram sounds like v'acharkach yio kemapetz, and a mapetz needs 6 al 6. So the Ramara brings from the Siddur Tara that he says that we're talking about Yikatzitzem. You weren't Yikatzitzem clearly for a mapetz. No, you were Yikatzitzem. You set it up in order for it to be used for other things. At this point in time, it's no longer a sifter. You're cutting it up. You weren't miyached it for yeshiva. It's like a little bit not so glottic, because l'churech, I mean, what are you being Makatzitzem for? So you're saying Achi Yikatzitzem and v'achar kach yil kemapetz. According, like the issue is, after you Yikatzitzem, does it have to be 6 by 6? Like we learned before that a stam machzelis needs to be 6 by 6, or no, since you're katzitzing, so therefore even if it's less than 6 by 6, it should also be makabel tumah. It's not so clear. Halacha vav. Choluk shel cotton, einim mistame b'medris, achiyeh be'keshir shleishet tvachim al shleishet tvachim. We learned before that stam beged, in order to be makabel medris, tumas medris, in other words, a piece of cloth has to be shleishet tvachim al shleishet tvachim. When clothes that a person wears, since a person sits on these clothes as well, so therefore they're also mekabel tumas medres, even though it's not really made to sit on, but lepel, a person sits on the clothes that he's wearing, so therefore it's also mekabel tumas medres. Now normally a person that's wearing clothes, the clothes that he's wearing is more than 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, or at least 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim. A cotton could possibly be that he's wearing clothes, and it's not 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, so that's the chiddush. Choluk shel cotton is einim mistame b'medus achiyeh be'keshir shleishet tvachim al shleishet tvachim. In order for it to be kabel tumah, it has to have the shir shleishet tvachim al shleishet tvachim. And v'nimdad, because it's not considered that it was osi lemedus, it was osi to wear. It's also used lemedus. So therefore, if it has shleish al shleisha, so it's makabel tumah. And v'nimdad kaful kibri yosei. In other words, when you want to measure it, so if you have he's wearing a shirt, that the shirt is like closed from. So it has 2 sides to it, but lapel it's like a double, like an undershirt, for example. So it's a closed undershirt. So mainly you don't measure the whole undershirt from both sides. You measure it as it is, kaful. Ve'elu nimdadim kfulim, and these are the ones that are measured double. Godim shemam nishim eisar raglaim, something you put on your leggings. So again, so since it's they're together and so you don't think about the circumference of this piece of cloth and see how big it is. Because lapel, since it's used double, so mainly you only measure it as it is. You're basically really only measuring half of its length. Because lapel, it's naturally done together, it's double. Valashikayim, or the things you put on the thighs, Vesaresh, or the godim you put onto the head, or Vamichnasayim, or trousers, Vakeva, and a hat, Vakis shel punda is also a kiss of an undershirt. Now umatlis. So all these things again, since they're double, they're used in a double way. So therefore, you only measure half of it. In other words, since in reality, if you open it up, so it would be much larger. It would be double the size. But since it's normally used in its folded manner, it's folded, or it's used as to one side of the leg and the other side of the leg. So therefore, it's considered only you measure half of it. Now, umatlis shetol ala sofa, matlis, on the edge of a piece of clothes, you hung up a matlis, another small piece of clothes from another piece of clothes. You went ahead and hung up a patch on a piece of clothes, on the border of another piece of clothes. So the question is how you hung it up. Im pshuta, if you hung it up like hanging out completely, it's completely spread out, that is pshuta. So then you measure this ploy, this matus rather, pshuta. However, vim kfula, if you hung it up double, in other words, you hung it up in a way that it was folded, so then that is kfula. So then it's measured, folded. Halacha zayin, habeged she'arak shleisha al shleisha. This beged was 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, and therefore it's royal lekabel medris, and v'nitma b'medris. It became Tommy Tumas Medris. Now Tumas Medris is an avatuma. V'achar kach hishlam is kol beged, and then you extended the beged. The beged was originally only 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, and then you extended. Now the beged is much larger. So the din is kuli medris. The entire, since the original part of the beged was Tumas Medris, so whatever you added to the beged also becomes Tumas Medris. Now nital chut echad mitchilase, you made it. It was 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, and then you went ahead and it was tumas medris, and then you took away 1 chut from that 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim. So now it's tomer min medris. So once it's no longer 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, so it's no longer tomer tumas medris. Aval tomer magas medris. In other words, this piece of cloth that was originally 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, and then when you took it away, so we look at it as if this piece of cloth that's left over was like taken away from a shleisha bal shleisha. Even though the l'chura originally was shleisha bal shleisha, now it's not shleisha bal shleisha. But lepel, we're looking at this piece as if it was taken off. In other words, this piece which is shleisha al shleisha minus 1 thread. But lepel, this piece was taken off from a shleisha al shleisha, and therefore it has a din of tamei tuma maga medris. The medris was an avatuma, and the maga medris is a rishon l'tuma. And therefore, varei orishin kekeli shenoga b'medris has a din of a rishon l'tuma, like a keli was noga b'medris. That nitl now that's din number 1. So din number 1 is that if you have a keli, so again we have this din that if you have a beged that was shleish al shleisha, and then it was nitma b'medris, and then you add it to this beged, so this entire beged is now tamei tumas medris. If lepel, before you added anything, it was nitma tumas medris, and then a thread was taken away from it. So when the thread was taken away from it, so now it becomes tamei tumas maga medris. Whatever's left, which was the shleish al shleisha minus a thread, has a din of tumas maga medris. Now nital chut echad mitchilasi, this same din we just had, that a thread was taken originally, and in other words, it was nitma tumas maga medris, and then nital chut echad mitchilasi. So Memela had a din of maga medris. V'achar kach hishlim es kol beged. And then you extended the beged to the part which was 3 by 3 minus a thread. Memela had a din of maga medris. Is kol beged tami maga medris. So now the entire beged, which is an extension of that original beged minus the thread, which had a din of maga medris. So now everything has a din of maga medris. So that's the din number 1. So din number 1 is that if you have a beged that's shleish al shleisha, so it's makabel to medris. If you add to this beged with shleish al shleisha, so then everything is tomei medris. If you take away from this original shleish al shleisha, so then it becomes tomei tumas maga medris. Now, if you add to this beged which you took away the chut from, and it had a din of tomei tumas maga medris, so the entire addition also has a din of tumas maga medris. V'chein, the same idea. Beged shenereg be sholish etzbois or sholish etzbois. It started off as being sholish etzbois or sholish etzbois, and then v'nitma b'mes, it became tomei b'mes, because as the din of a keilim, a beged is sholish etzbois or sholish etzbois, and then v'hachar kach hishlim olav es kol beged, and then you extended the beged beyond the sholish al sholish. So the din is a beged kuli tmei mes. The entire beged has a din of tmei mes. Nital chut echad mitchilase. If originally, it was a sholish al sholish, and it became tomei tmei mes, and then 1 chut was taken away, is Torah mitmei mes, so Memela it's no longer Tomei tmei mes, aval Tomei maga tmei mes, which over here is a chidush, that l'chura, since you took away the chut, so you don't really have sholish al sholish anymore. So if you don't have sholish al sholish anymore, how could it become Tomei maga tmei mes? L'chura, the original beged, the gimel al gimel, the sholish al sholish boys, had a din of tmei mes. Masha'enki now it can't become tamei maga tmei mes, because lepel what's left is less than sholish al sholish. Nevertheless, the din is that it is tamei maga tmei mes. That's been again the beged itself. However, nitl chut echad mitchilos. If originally from the sholish al sholish you took away the chut, v'achar kach hishtum es kol beged. Now you are mashing the beged. So the chura, originally when you took away the chut before you were mashlim the beged, so this sholish al sholish minus a chut had a din of magat memes. Now that you are mashlim the beged, so the chura, everything should have a din of magat memes. So on that we say hakel tor. Now if you are mashlim the beged on this sholish al sholish, which is minus a chut, hakel tor. V'lo meyeh hakel tor. Why was hakel tor? Nesha amru sholish al sholish in the smata. Since it was sholish al sholish in the smata, it's teira miklum. So memela, since it's teira miklum, so therefore it's not tummy. It can't be tummy because lepel it was less than a sholish al sholish. The shaila is, why are we saying that this din is only when this less than sholish al sholish you add it to? We just said before that when you had sholish al sholish and then you took away the chut, so then that less than sholish al sholish, in other words, the sholish al sholish minus a chut did have a din of magat memes. So if that did have a din of magat memes, so why when you add to it, it doesn't have a din of an extension of the magat memes? And the answer is because it's not be'emes magat memes. Because lepel sholish al sholish minus a chut is not sholish al sholish, so therefore it doesn't have a din of magat memes. It just midrabanan has a din of magat memes. That din midrabanan has a din of magat memes is only legabe the thing itself. But now if you're going to add something to it, so now you're going to want to say that the addition should also have a din of an extension of magat memes. And in reality, the original doesn't really have a din of magat memes. So here we say fakert, that the extension causes that the original should that the original never really had a din of magat memes, and now the whole thing is torn. That's been a geya sholish al sholish. Avu shleish al shleishish in the smata is avu pishatorim and amedis is areit mei b'chalatumas. Over there, Taka has a din of magamedis. There's no reason it shouldn't have a din of magamedis. In other words, for shleish to be a medis, it has to be shleish al shleisha. Masha'enkin, when it became shleish al shleisha pachas chut, so it's no longer roy lemedis, but it's roy to be magamedis, because lepel to be magamedis, it's enough that it should be sholish al sholish. Halacha ches, matlis shehi medis. They have a matlis which is tomi medis. They have a piece of cloth, and v'tolo ala kupa e ala oir. You took this piece of cloth and you put it on a box or on a piece of leather. Is nasa hakel rishon l'tumah, because since this matlis is an avatuma, and now it touched the kupa and the oir. So really, ogdol l'chura, the matlis was originally avatuma. But by becoming part of the kupa and the oir, the matlis loses its shem medris. It loses its shem medris because it's no longer what it was. In other words, when it was a matlis, so it had a din of royal medris, it was part of medris. Masha'enki, now that you put it on the kupa and the oir, which is not royal medris, so then it loses its shem medris, and therefore it's not medris anymore. But lepel, before it lost its shem medris, it touched up the kupa and the oir. So since it touched the kupa and the air, so the kupa and the air now became a maga tmei medis, and now that this matlis is part of that kupa and the air, it's also part of maga tmei medis. So this matlis was transformed. In other words, it wasn't transformed from being a medis to become maga medis. It was transformed. Originally, it was a maga. It was medis. It made the kupa or the air into a maga medis, and it became part of that kupa and the air. And therefore, it has a din also of the magamedus, because it has a din of the kupa and the air. Now, hifrish is a matlis. Now you took the matlis away from the kupa or from the air. Is a reyakupa air is rishon, because lepel they touch the matlis. Mipnei shunogu memedus. But the matlis remains story. Why? Shvei kiven shetola v'hifrishon botlo. So no, that's the nukud. The nukud is that when this matlis became part of this kupa, so it lost its din of a medris. It lost its din of a medris. So its whole tumah was only because it was part. Notice, why was a medris? It was metame the kupa. So the kupa has the din of maga medris. Now the matlis itself, as we said before, became part of the kupa. So it also has the din of maga medris. But now when you take this matlis off the kupa, so memela, since no longer part of the kupa, so memela, it's not a medris. It lost its original medris business. And it's no longer part of the kupa, mela, it's nothing. So mela, it's start. That's this din. Now, that's talking about when you put it on a kupa, because a kupa is not royal medris. Now, tola la beged el asak. So now you were tola la beged el asak. So faket nasak kel medris. So now the sack and the beged becomes bottled to the. So those we have over here a matlis which is tummy medris, and it was connected to a beged and a sack. So now the whole beged in the sack is nasa akel medus. Memele bari akel avatuma. Now everything is an avatuma. So it doesn't have a din of maga medus. It becomes bottle to the matlas and becomes an avatuma. Now hifrisha, you were mafresh this matlas from the beged sack which you originally connected to is a beged a sack rishon because shari noga medus. Matlas avtumik shoyse sheina betel al ha'arid. There's when you'd connected the matlas to the kupa, so then it lost its shem matlas, and therefore its whole tumah was only because it was part of the matlas. And maybe when it was disconnected, it became oistamik. Mashengan over here, it never lost its tumah. It was connected to beged, so maybe it retained its tumah, and the other thing became its tumah als medris. And now that it was disconnected, so the beged is now tummy als magametis. Matlas avatumik shoyse sheina betel al ha'arid. That's it. Now, tofar hamatlas ala beged, kshetola miruach achas, a mishtei ruches kimin gam, is any chibur. In other words, when you're saying you connected it to a beged, to connect it to a beged means you connected that it should be mamish sewn on. So if you go ahead and sew it on from one side, so then it's just hanging on the beged. That's not called connecting it to the beged, that the beged should now become tummy medus. We're saying before that if you have this matlas, which is tummy medus, and now you connected it to the beged, so the beged is also tummy medus. What's that connected? So if you just sew it on one side, it's not considered connected. Even if you sew it on like a dalid, you sew it on one side, on two sides, but they're not two opposite sides, so it's also not connected. Masha'inkin, if you sew it on two opposite sides, even though you didn't sew it on all four sides, it's considered connected. That's what we're saying. Tafar amatus ala beged kshetola miruach achas. If you did it from one side, you connected it only from one side. A mishtei ruchis, or even from two sides, but it was kimin gam. Kimin gam is like a dalit. Is any chibur v'lei nasa hakil av ela maga medus b'lvad. Then the beged would originally never. Whereas the beged is becoming an avatuma because it became connected to the matlas. Becoming connected to the matlas by being sewn on one side is not called it was connected. However, tofra mishtei ruchis zubit sadzu, if you did it from two opposite sides, is then is a reo chibur, then it's considered a chibur, and then it's v'nasa hakel av. Then the whole thing becomes an avatuma, and also becomes all a din of medus. Now, shleisha al shleisha shenitim b'medus. We learned before that if you have a beged that's made out of 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim, became tummy b'medus, v'achar kach nechlak, and then it was split into half, is tor min hamedus. So it became tor, it became uis tummy medus. And l'chura, let's say that it should have a din of maga medus. We say no, v'ein b'kroim eilu tumah klal. So they don't have it in tumah because lepeil, in other words, they were a medrus, and now they're not medrus, because so memela becomes uis medrus. V'hinam kishivri keli shenitma. It's a shivri keli that was nitma, and now it's no longer a keli. It's now no longer a keli, because it's not the original keli that it was tummy lemedrus, so it doesn't have a din of maga medrus, because neither of them remained a tumas medrus. A maga medrus could only be if there's something that's a medrus, and you take something off from something that's a medrus, or you connect something to something that's a medrus, it becomes maga medrus. Over here, the entire thing was a medrus, and now the entire thing became uis medrus. So if it becomes uis medrus, there's no maga medrus. Aval beged shnitma b'medrus. If you have a beged shnitma b'medrus, and then the karim imenu sholish etzbois al sholish etzbois, and you cut off from it a piece of cloth which is gimel etzbois by gimel etzbois, so then it's takator min hamedrus. This piece of cloth which you tore off becomes uis medrus. Aval tami maga medrus. But it does become tami maga medrus. Why? Shebe'ez prishasi min habeged hagadol is nitma b'maga. So it's possible when you have the 3 by 3 originally, and though 3 by 3 was split, so now neither of them has a din of a medrus, so neither of them has a din of a maga medrus. Originally they were both part of a medrus, and now they're both uis medrus. Masha'inkin, if you have a medrus, and then you have something that's a medrus, and then you take something a little bit off, you have something more than gimel al gimel. Shleisha tvachim or shleisha tvachim. And then you take off a piece from it, which is, let's say, gimel is boys, or gimel is boys, sholish is boys, or sholish is boys. So that piece has a din of maga medrus. Halacha yud. Sadin shenitma b'medrus. You have a sadin, which was a lilac, and it was nitma b'medrus, and v'achar kach haso parechas, and you made it into a parechas. So the din is tor min hamedrus, so it's no longer a din medrus, so it doesn't have tumas medrus, and it's not makabel tumas medrus. When does it lose its din of being makabel tumas medrus? When you hang up the hooks, because you have the hooks that you're going to hang up this parechas with, So once you hang up the hook, so it loses its Shem Sadn. It's no longer a Sadn, which is Roy Lemedis, and now it's a Berecha. So Mele it's Tor Min Amedis, and now it's Roy to be Makabel other Tumas, which is like a Perechas. A Perechas is Makabel other Tumas. Now, Halacha Yudalef, Talis Shehi Medis. You have a Talis, which was Tommy Tumas Medis, and Vihidbila, and you went ahead and you would table this Talis. Now, the Keilim Shi'arev, you have to wait for Herev Shemesh for the Gemara Atara. The Keilim Shi'arev Shimsha, before there was Herev Shemesh, Hischul Lekreya Mimenu Kera. You started cutting it. Now, Kivin Shenikr Baruba, once you made a cut into most of this Talis, so even though Be'emes is still connected, but nevertheless, Shuv Ein Chibur, it's not considered connected. The two pieces aren't considered connected, and therefore it's considered both like broken off. And the Torah Kula, they're both Torah. They're both pieces of even though they really are connected. But since you already cut through most of it, so therefore we consider it that it's already Omer to be cut through all of it, and therefore it's Torah Kula, the whole thing becomes Torah. There's enough over there to be considered a beged, which is lay nikra, so l'chura that part should remain tummy. But nevertheless, it doesn't become tummy. Why? Shari kurev v'hela, because we assume that he's going to cut it and continue cutting it, and memela it's already oimed to become uiz beged, and therefore it's not considered a beged anymore. It's not considered something which is roy to be mekabel tumah. B'medvar mamurim v'tfulas yein. We're talking about you went ahead and you were toivel this talis, and then you started cutting it. So once you were toivel the talis, which shows that you're not worried about it getting wet, and now you started cutting it, so we could assume that hu karev v'helach, so Mamela is going to cut it all, so therefore even before Herev Shemesh, it already has a din of Tara. Shekiv shlichoso la'alad bila, we saw that he was toivel it, is kach le'yochus l'kreyas kula, so we could assume he's going to continue cutting it. Well, if you have Tara kula, masha'inkin if snamaze, if you have a beged that you weren't toivel and you started cutting it, so, and that beged was tummy, so the fact that you cut ruba doesn't make a tur until you actually cut kula, as long as there's still a kedema peris, which is mekabel tumah, so therefore it's still tummy.